and welcome back to another episode of Jason's Life in 5. We are on the train. We boarded last night in Dresden. We're sitting where Tanya's bed was. Our heads are where my bed was. And we are having our breakfast on the train, which is, I have the sweet one, which is breads with jelly and honey and butter. And then we've got some sort of wafer cookie and a juice. Now Tanya went with the savory, so she got soft cheeses like a cream cheese and a ham spread. So Kate and I are glad we did not pick the ham spread. So in maybe 30 or 45 minutes we'll be arriving in Zurich. We're inviting you to come along and join us. We're pulling into Zurich and to the station in a few minutes. Then we'll be hopping on another train after a short transfer. Alright, so after 12 and a half hours, we're roughly on the train. We got in roughly 40 minutes later than I think was scheduled. But we are now in Zurich. We've just exited the train. The train was not bad. I mean, it certainly was tight conditions, but you know, it was a lot easier to do that than travel during the day and sleep in a spot. And it's quite an experience. You know, you had the beds, they brought us breakfast, and you know, at the end when you were done sleeping, you could convert it back to chairs, which we did in the morning while we ate our breakfast. And they had a shower actually on there, surprisingly enough. So now we're gonna go find some lockers and check in our bags while we go and explore a little bit. Not actually gonna explore Zurich right now. We're gonna get on a train and head to Vaduz in Liechtenstein. Our first order of business was to find a locker, which we have done. Our bags are down in there. We couldn't fit everything into one large locker, so we had to get a large and a medium, because unfortunately we just couldn't fit the third suitcase. So we got those in there. It's like 9 Swiss francs for the large one, and I think 7 for the medium one, for 6 hours, and then we pay an additional based on, you know, longer than that. What it does is you lock it, it gives you a QR code, and then you come back and scan that, and that'll open it up. So now we are gonna go see if we can figure out the train pass we have and which train we need to take to head towards Liechtenstein. So it looks like our train leaves in about 25 minutes, I think is what we said. So we're gonna take a train towards Zurich, and we have to get off at a stop or two before then at Sargans, and then we will take a bus from there. And it's about an hour and 25 minutes? That's what it said the train ride, or the transfer time was when we looked. So we'll just wander around the train station for a few minutes and check it out. It's quite interesting. It looks like it's just kind of open on both sides here. There's our train, the IC3 at 10:38 from Zurich via Sargans, because that's where we are going through, is Sargans. We decided we'd take a few minutes and just kind of wander around the outskirts of the train station while we wait for our train. Behind me is the National Museum, and it's kind of funny, they had all of these racks for bike parking. My daughter thought that was quite interesting to see. So we're outside the entrance to the train station. They have no smoking signs. I think it's funny because there's ashtrays and people smoking while they stand on the no smoking sign before they go into the train station. Sargans, this is us. And our train ticket is valid for second class. And we are on. And we are off. Train ride should be just under an hour to Sargans. And then we'll take a bus from there to Vaduz. the view here. That is incredible. We have arrived in Sargans. Now we have to find the bus up to Vaduz. I believe it's over here, it looks like. There's a bunch of buses, so we'll look and see if that's where the bus stops and which number we need. It looked like, according to the directions, we only had like 5 minutes. So hopefully we catch it. We made it onto the bus. When we got off the train, we actually saw a bus that was labeled as Vaduz that we watched it drive away. But we're on another one. This bus heads to Feldkirch and it goes through Vaduz. And my daughter was amazed because Feldkirch is in Western Austria. And she said, this bus goes to 3 different countries? I guess it does. These are some beautiful towns we are driving through. And the mountain scenery is just breathtaking. We have exited the train in Vaduz, which is, I guess, the capital of Liechtenstein. For those that do not know, Liechtenstein is the 6th smallest country in the world. The reason to come here is, I guess, my daughter wanted to come here, so that's why we are here. But we're gonna go up. They have a national post office museum, or a postage stamp museum, I guess. We're gonna go check that out. They have a national museum as well as some other things. So we're gonna wander around and see if we can find where we wanna go. And yeah. That bus, it did get rather crowded on that bus, I will say. It looked like school must have gotten out, because as we went along the stops, we picked up more and more teenage kids. So we were on the bus. That's how we drove by this, which it's got this really cool church, and there's these statues under here. Guessing that might be the depiction of the birth of Christ and the death, perhaps. And then up here is a church. This is evidently one of the sites that is one of the things to see and do here. For some reason, going to Europe always involves going to a lot of churches, I find, but they're always impressive on the inside. So we'll come up here and see what we can find. Not sure if it's something that we would be able to go in, but we can look. Not sure if we're going to be able to go in, but we did get to hear the bells. It's 12:30. They have a board that has QR codes. Unfortunately, we have a little bit of service. My wife looked and it said that supposedly the cathedral is open from 7:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day. We didn't see a door open, but we'll see if we can get in. Well, they're going in, so we'll see. The Vaduz Cathedral was originally constructed in 1874, and it was originally built as a parish church. It was later elevated to a cathedral in 1997. It's the venue for national and royal family celebrations. In August of 2025, Princess Marie Caroline, granddaughter of Prince Hans Adam, was married at the cathedral. As we wandered around the outside of the cathedral, there were some people, they were clearly Americans, or at least speaking very clear English, and they were wanting to go inside, but it looked like it was closed. And we went up and tried a door, and we were able to get right in. And then I told some people, and then as we were walking out, it seemed like a flood. I don't know if it was a tour bus, but it was like a flood of people coming into the cathedral. So we kind of hit it at just the right time. But now we are going to make our way over to the Postage Stamp Museum. It should be just right up the way here. And yeah, we'll get our stamp on. Here's a monument to Joseph Gabriel of Rheinberger. So we're walking through, I assume this is the main square, headed up. I believe the Postal Museum is up this way. And I said to my wife and daughter, I said, oh, there's the castle. And my daughter said, where? And I said, look up. There it is. So we can go see the castle maybe. The castle's not open, but you can see the grounds. At least that's my understanding. The gentleman at the information booth told us that there's a little tram or train we can take. And I'm assuming this is it. We have boarded the city train, I think is what it says here. And it was 12 Swiss francs, so it was like $15 a person. And we're going to drive through Vaduz in 35 minutes and learn everything we need to know about Liechtenstein and old Vaduz, I guess. The city train tour was a pretty interesting way to see the city. Now, Liechtenstein is the 6th smallest country in the world. So there's not a ton of sights to see, but the first sight that we saw on our tour was the Red House. It's named after the distinctive dark red piece of the building. This is the second most famous building in Vaduz. And the rumor is that this building is haunted because a former owner had been murdered and that his ghost haunts the house and possibly the city. The tour continues a little bit further up the hill, and they take you into an area where you can see some of the larger estates. And across the river you can see Switzerland, as the Rhine down in the valley is actually the border of Liechtenstein. Coming back down, you can see the castle up on the hill. Originally it used to be a tavern or a temporary residence for the royalty, but not as of today, because now it is the permanent residence of the Liechtenstein royal family. And speaking of the royal family, winemaking has always been an important part of the region. And these vineyards here are actually owned by the royal family and are used to make wine today to help support the royal family. I think one of the most valuable things we actually learned on this tour is the name of the city is not pronounced Vaduz, but actually Vaduz. And after about 35 minutes, we come back towards the center of Vaduz, and our tour comes to an end. You can tell that the people that live here are pretty well off because it's not a very populated country. I think this said there's like 36,000, but all of the cars that I've seen have been very nice. There's BMWs, Porsches. I think the Hyundai is probably the town beater that I saw, and it was in good shape. So you're gonna go take a stop at the Vaduzner Hus. We decided to eat lunch. Been in the grocery store and just kind of found some options. And we're gonna eat with the prince overlooking our lunch. Tanya's having a mystery meat sandwich. It's hard when you don't know what the language says. I'm having a pasta salad. And Katya is having some sort of pastrami, potatoes and asparagus. And she got some sort of chocolate milk thing.
It just kind of tastes like instant breakfast.
It tastes like instant breakfast. So is it instant regret?
No, I like it. I like instant
And then she wanted a carrot cake, so we will be having that. We'll follow the stamps on the ground. To the Post Museum. Looks like it's being renovated on the outside, but hopefully it's still open on the inside. So in the museum, they have a number of the stamps that were used to validate postage. They have a postman's uniform from 1910. This is from actually the Austrian post that was stationed in Liechtenstein. This shows the method used to make the stamp. And here are some of the steel engravings for the 9th of September 1976 stamp, which commemorated the 400th birthday of Peter Paul Rubens. Not Paul Rubens as in Pee Wee Herman, but the painter. This display shows the multiple layers of printing. You get all the different colors that go into it to make the final product. Here's some old writing implements, quill pens and letter openers, and inkwells. They have a display here dedicated strictly to postcards, and it talks about how in the 20th century postcards became an important means of communication, especially for people in love. And it's funny because nowadays, I think postcards can be a novelty, but if you think about a time before we had text, email, any of the instant communications we have, this was the primary way that was managed. These are X-ray postcards that are German from the earliest 20th century. And they have some examples up here you can see. So you pull the little thumb down here and you see, so instead of the dog looking in the door, oh, that's scandalous. Here we have a nice day at the seashore. Oh, oh. And here is a lady lounging. Aren't those shocking?
So shocking.
Excuse me, Mr. Postman, do you have a letter for me? Maybe a little sultry postcard? And along this wall, they have these large displays you can pull out and see examples of some of the postage stamps. A lot of them would be royalty. So you can see some of the art they used to base it off of, and then the actual stamps themselves. So there's quite a few in here. Kind of neat. And of course, what museum would not be complete without a gift shop? Here they have all kinds of Liechtenstein and postage related items, including an option where you can get, at least for the last number of years, stamps from any of the years for many decades. This is pretty cool. They actually have stamps from 1912. That is the year the Titanic sank. That's amazing. They have an option to do a rubbing of a stamp. All I can think of is the shield is the second marker. And that's how our rubbing worked out from that. They have an option where you can write your own postcards. It'll even include the stamp. And you can send one off. And now we will mail them away. We have finished at the Postage Museum. It's certainly an interesting thing to visit. It didn't take very long at all. It's not postage from around the world. It is postage specifically in Liechtenstein, but it is, I think, interesting to experience. It is free. That being said, we ended up buying postcards and stamps and then tickets for the other museum there. So, but yeah, if you're ever in Liechtenstein, I would tell you definitely to stop by and at least take a peek. And now we are gonna go into the treasury. We have our coin. We bought this at the Postage Museum, and then we're gonna go into the treasury. She said it wouldn't take us very long. She said maybe 15 minutes. It's not very big treasury, so here we go. When the light turns green, you put your coin in, and then you go in. It's one per person. Goodbye, Tanya. I don't think we will be filming in here because it says no cameras, so maybe you won't get to see treasure, but I'll go check it out. We visited the treasury. It did not take very long, maybe 15 minutes. They had some interesting items in there, some Fabergé eggs and some, art on the wall and various things. I think the thing that my daughter was most excited about was there was a moon rock that was gifted to Liechtenstein from America in 1973. So that was kind of cool. And now we are going to go see if we can find the National Museum. Originally, we probably weren't planning on visiting because it looks like they're only open till 5. However, they did tell me, it's Wednesday, so they are open till 8 o'clock. Liechtensteines Landesmuseum. This is the National Museum. On the ground level, you come into this area, and it starts with some of the, I guess you might say, ancient history in the area. They have, various tools of different kinds that have been found. There is pottery over here that you can see. In this room, they talk about some of the archaeological and anthropological studies that they have done, finding graves and burial sites in the area, and, the interesting things that you can derive from a people and what was going on in society based on those bones. As you move up to the upper levels, you'll see lots of displays of different historical items of the times. You've got old landmarkers, you've got relics from the old army that no longer exists, as well as different rooms with displays of, authentic items that are from the past of Liechtenstein, and, video displays showing, some of the past of the area as well. Behind me are some of the traditional clothing items that used to be worn, or I think we said traken. They are not generally worn today except for during festivals or special events, but they were something that were definitely worn back in the day. It's kind of cool that they're trying to preserve the history of the country here so that people can see, what was life like before cell phones and video games. This exhibit here is quite interesting. It's talking about the currency in Liechtenstein, and back prior to World War I, they used the Austrian currency. However, after World War I, the currency collapsed and it caused a lot of problems economically, especially here in Liechtenstein, and they only had access to the larger bills. So what they did is they actually went ahead and printed their own Liechtenstein currency for the smaller Heller bills, and that's what these notes here are. They're the only paper money ever printed for Liechtenstein. Then in 1920, they started using the Swiss franc, even though the Swiss didn't give express consent for that. It wasn't until 1980 when they did so, but since 1920, it's been the official currency of Liechtenstein. Now, this is an interesting story in particular. In 1957, there was the largest find of coins, ancient coins, in the Rhine Valley history. And there were children playing on a construction site, and they found this vessel that had a few hundred different gold and silver coins that all dated back from around 1365. So kind of a neat little story. When we were on our tour earlier today, they said that Liechtenstein has an interesting government, that the prince, I guess, who's actually the leader of the country, it's not just a figurehead. It's actually someone that is an integral part of the rule, but they aren't able to just make rules based upon their own desires and enriching their own life. They actually have to work with Parliament to lead the country for the betterment of all people. And in this wing, they had a collection of religious items from the area They had different sculptures and carvings and things along those lines that were of religious value. This was an old baptismal font from the 13th or 14th century that was used in the area as well. Just kind of neat to see some of the old historic religious items. Now this Lenten veil, or this veil, was displayed in a local church, and it has 24 different religious stories depicted on it, and it is from the year 1612. You can see with me here the massive size of this, and it's amazing to think that, this is over 400 years old, and it's neat that they would have preserved something like this. And it was used during Lent because they used this to cover the crucifixes until after Lent had passed. In the nature area, they have displays of some of the native species. It's a very small area, but it's kind of neat to see them all. And some of them are items that you can pet. Hi, Mr. Warthog, how are you? So soft. Not. There's lots of alpine marmot in the area. And if you go hiking, they said you will see them. You'll hear their whistle where they warn their friends. Well, our time at the museum is over. I think it was an interesting place to visit. It's always, as I've mentioned in other videos, it's interesting to go to these places where they have items of historical nature that you just aren't familiar, so you don't connect with. But it was interesting to see, the collection of the history and those kinds of things. So now we are going to make our way back to the bus. Our time in Liechtenstein is coming to a close because we still have to take a train back to Zurich to gather our bags and then go on to where we will be staying, which is not in Zurich. We might spend a little bit of time in Zurich. We'll see when we arrive and what we want to do. But for now, we're going to go try to catch the bus and head back to Zurich. We barely made it onto the bus. Well, actually, we didn't. The bus was just pulling away, and the driver saw us and pulled over and said, "Shh." I said, "Shh." So we got on. So now we are headed down to Sargans, where we will be taking a train back to Zurich. This train station is definitely smaller than the other ones we have been in. The train to Zurich has an upstairs and a downstairs. Should we do up or down?
Up.
Up. So after almost an hour, we are back in Zurich, back at the train station. We might go check out that food truck market and see if that's open, or go into the city. I mean, we're in the city, but go just wander around, see if we can find something out there as well before we take the train to Lucerne tonight, because that's where we'll be staying. It's about another 50 minutes or an hour, depending on which train we take there. Welcome to the food truck market. Got corn dogs, shawarma and potatoes. Saw some crepes over there. Smash dog. So we did not find anything that really stuck out to us at the food market, so we're wandering down the street, see if we can find anything. We just crossed the river, and now we've come to a spot where we've got to decide, are we going to go along the river and the main street or the little alleyway? It looks like we have chosen the alleyway. We're going to go have dinner at the raclette factory. We like a good raclette. All right, so we ended up ordering a raclette. I went with one that is, I think Cutty went the same one actually. It's called the Clara. So it's two different types of cheeses, and then half of it's with bread and half of it is with potatoes. Have you tried it yet?
Mm-hmm.
How is it? It's tasty. Cheesy.
I think I like the bread cheese more.
You like the bread cheese more? Is it because you like the bread or the cheese more?
I like the cheese more, but the cheese on
But the other one's okay too? That's good. So how was our dinner?
it was very good.
It was pretty good. It was tasty. It was funny, I was watching the gentleman back there making the food. So the flatbread pizza or whatever they called it, they put the topping, you know, like, I don't know, whatever the base, and then the cheese on top of it, and then cooked it, and then pulled it out of the oven, and then put all of the toppings on. So my wife said that the onions tasted like they were raw, so I'm guessing it's because they were. And then as far as the raclette, they had the little tray of cheese they would pull out, and I watched them scoop it onto the bread and potatoes. So yeah, it's very good. Making our way slowly back to the train station, but we did stumble upon what I believe is the largest clock face in Europe. It is a pleasant walk along the riverfront here. Evidently in warmer weather, you'll see residents jump from the bridge into the water. Certainly not any of that today. You can see the Swiss flag up there. Looks like a lot of things are either closed or starting to close up. It's after 8 o'clock now. And I believe the train station is just straight down here. I hope it is, so that's where we need to go. We have made it back to the Bahnhof, and if you don't believe me, look at the street signs. The bags have been gathered, and now we will go find our train. Looks like one leaves at 10 after 9, and we'll head on over. Now, one thing to be aware of, I think I mentioned this before, it seems a little bit better in Switzerland, but I did look, and in the vending machine, you actually have to buy a card to use the restroom here, or the water closet, toilette, whichever you prefer. So it's kind of funny. You buy a card, it's like 1.5 francs, so almost $2 to go take a pee in the bathroom at the train station. Or we can ride the train and we can go for free. Here's the train to Lucerne. So it is late and most things are closed. We're trying to make our way to the hotel. The hotel we're staying at is the Hotel Barabbas, I believe is how it's pronounced. It is unique because it's an old converted prison in Lucerne, and you actually get to stay behind bars, supposedly. So it'll be interesting to spend the night in a jail. We've made it to the hotel. The Barabbas Hotel, I believe is the name. The hotel was originally a prison that opened in 1862, and it wasn't until 1998 that it was closed and all the prisoners were moved out. When they closed the prison, they found the old guillotine that was last used in 1940. We have arrived at our room. You can certainly see from the door, it's unlike any place else. Let's go in and take a look. We got the triple bed, hello. So we've got prisoner bunks and a single bed. And then there's a bathroom in here. It's pretty basic, of course. But it does have that prison feel. Well, I think that is going to do it for today's adventure. It's been a full day of traveling and sleeping in weird places, and tonight will be no different. So we'll check in tomorrow as we continue our journey through Switzerland, and in the meantime, happy travels.